In the dawn of time, when the ancient lands of Persia were shrouded in conflict, a great war raged between two mighty kingdoms. For years, the battlefields had drunk the blood of heroes, and the cries of the weary echoed through the mountains. The war had reached a stalemate, a bitter deadlock where neither side could claim victory, and the people yearned for an end to the ceaseless bloodshed. Finally, the kings agreed to a pact, a single, desperate chance for peace. A single arrow would decide the fate of their nations. It would be fired from the peak of a mountain, and wherever it landed, that spot would mark the new border between the two realms. A simple solution, yet one that held the weight of an entire civilization in its flight. Who could possibly bear such a burden? Who possessed the strength to shoot an arrow far enough to grant Persia the lands it deserved, to restore its pride and secure its future? The call went out across the Persian camp. Warriors, famed for their strength and skill, stepped forward, their chests puffed with pride. They boasted of their prowess, of arrows that could pierce the hide of a lion or split a falling leaf in two. But the weight of this task was different. It wasn't just about skill, it was about something more, something deeper. The king, his face etched with worry, looked upon his men, searching for a sign, for a champion who could carry the hopes of his people. Among the throng of muscular soldiers and decorated commanders, one man stood apart. He was not the strongest or the tallest. His name was Arash, a simple archer known for his quiet demeanor and the steady calm in his eyes. He was humble, his body lean from a life of modest means, but within him burned a fire, a devotion to his land that was unmatched. As the boasting of the other warriors faded into the wind, Arash stepped forward. The crowd parted, their murmurs hushed as this unassuming figure approached the throne. He bowed his head, his voice clear and unwavering. "I will shoot the arrow." A silence fell over the assembly. Some scoffed, others looked on with pity. How could this man, so frail in appearance, succeed where the mightiest would surely fail? But the king saw something in Arash's gaze, not arrogance, but a profound and selfless resolve. He saw a man willing to give everything for his home. With a solemn nod, the king agreed. The fate of Persia now rested on the shoulders of this one humble archer. The journey to the chosen peak, the majestic and formidable Mount Damavand, was an ordeal in itself. As Arash began his ascent, the world seemed to hold its breath. The sky darkened, and thunder rumbled across the heavens as if the gods themselves were watching this mortal dare to shape destiny. He climbed higher and higher, the air growing thin, the wind whipping at his clothes. He was not just climbing a mountain, he was ascending towards his fate. At the summit, a group of priests awaited him, their faces grim and reverent. They presented him with a bow, but this was no ordinary weapon. It was a sacred artifact, crafted from the heartwood of an ancient tree and inlaid with gold, its surface covered in glowing runes that pulsed with a faint, ethereal light. As Arash took the bow, he felt a strange power flow through him, a connection to the very soul of the land he sought to protect. The priests explained the nature of the bow's magic. It would channel the life force of its wielder, turning their very spirit into the arrow's flight. The further the arrow traveled, the more of the archer's soul it would consume. To shoot this arrow was to make the ultimate sacrifice. Arash listened, his expression unchanged. He had known deep in his heart what this task would demand of him. There was no fear, only acceptance. This was his purpose. He turned to face the vast expanse of the world spread out below him. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden halo around his determined face, illuminating the streaks of dust and sweat on his skin. He looked out over the fields and rivers of his homeland, a silent promise in his eyes. He was ready. Standing at the precipice of the world, Arash placed an arrow on the string. He took a deep breath, drawing not just air into his lungs, but the essence of the mountains, the whispers of the wind, and the collective hope of his people. He pulled the bowstring back, his muscles straining under the immense power coursing through the wood. The bow bent, groaning, glowing with an intense, divine light that enveloped him completely. The world fell silent. The wind died down. Even the thunder held its peace. In that suspended moment, Arash whispered a prayer, a final farewell carried on the faintest breeze. "May this arrow be my soul. May it fly to the farthest reaches and bring peace to my people." And then, he let go. The sound of the snapping bowstring was like the crack of creation itself. But it was not an arrow of wood and feather that flew from the bow. It was a bolt of pure, blinding golden light, a comet of soulfire. Time seemed to bend and warp as the arrow of light streaked across the sky. It soared higher than any bird, faster than any thought. It cut through the clouds, leaving a shimmering trail in its wake. The arrow traveled for what felt like an eternity, crossing plains, forests, and valleys. pushing ever onward, fueled by the entirety of Arash's life and spirit. Finally, far, far beyond the horizon, in a distant land by the edge of a great river, the light descended. It struck the trunk of a massive walnut tree, and upon impact, the light exploded, bathing the earth in a warm golden glow. Where the arrow landed, a new border was forged, a boundary of peace and prosperity for Persia, far greater than anyone had ever dared to dream. Back on the summit of Mount Damavand there was only silence. Where Arash the Archer had stood, there was nothing. He had vanished. His body, his life, his very being had been poured into that single, miraculous shot. He had become the arrow. All that remained was the sacred bow resting upon the cold stone, still radiating a gentle warmth, a final echo of the great soul who had wielded it. The wind began to pick up again, no longer a furious gale, but a soft, gentle breeze that whispered through the peaks and valleys. It was as if Arash's spirit was now free, carried by the wind across the very lands he had saved, a guardian spirit watching over his people. Down below, on the battlefield, the soldiers once enemies fell to their knees in unison, their hearts filled with a profound sense of awe and gratitude. The Persian king, his eyes filled with tears, looked towards the mountain peak and whispered, "His body is gone, but his courage has become our border." From that day forward, the story of Arash the Archer was etched into the heart of Persia. It became a legend told to every child, a story of how one humble man, with a heart full of love for his home, made the ultimate sacrifice to bring peace and define a nation. His legacy is not one of war, but of hope, a timeless reminder that the greatest strength lies not in the body, but in the boundless power of a selfless spirit. Thank you for joining us on this journey into myth and legend. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales from the ancient world. Until next time, stay curious.